So Lies of P Overture literally dropped out of nowhere, and after beating it on legendary difficulty, I can definitely say that I enjoyed it for the most part, even though I kinda wished it was a bit longer. But despite its length, it was still an enjoyable experience. It was filled with lots of different content like new weapons, enemies, especially these dummy thick robot puppets, and most importantly, some cool new bosses. The bosses in the DLC were super hard, and one of them being so hard to the point where I had to take a break from the game itself and go outside to touch grass. So yeah, because of this, I wanted to rank the main bosses in the DLC to see which is truly the hardest. But before I get into the video, if you like content like this, then be sure to like and subscribe. Again, only if you want to. I'm not holding you at gunpoint or anything. Anyways, without wasting any more of your time, let's talk about the first entry. This guy. A very mediocre boss fight. He's a stalker, so you know the fight is gonna feel very stiff and clunky. However, unlike most of the other stalker bosses in the game, he actually transforms into something different. In phase 2, his infection gets the better of him and he transforms into this thing. What's crazy is that I find the second phase to be much more easier to deal with than the first, as all of his attacks here are super easy to read. But that's pretty much it for him quality wise. Now all that aside, in terms of difficulty, he's very easy. Dare I say he's the easiest boss in the DLC for sure. His attacks in the first phase can be a bit tricky, and the fact that the arena is pretty small doesn't help either. But again, in the second phase, sure, his aggression and damage somewhat turns up, but it's way easier to read his attacks and counter him. All in all, he's a very mediocre fight in terms of quality, and very easy, at least compared to the other bosses in the DLC. Veronique, one of my least favorite bosses from the DLC. Like, she's not bad, but I wouldn't say she's good either, just very mid. Just like any other stalker, she feels so clunky to fight, and it's the weird attack animations. You know, where the character will charge up a swing of a weapon and then, when it's time to attack, the animation comes out super fast, so it's kind of hard to react to, and annoying to deal with. Speaking of annoying, the arena is a bit too small for a crazy ass mofo like her. She also does fire damage and hits like a missile. However, despite this, she wasn't as hard as some of the other bosses, mostly because you can backstab her at given times and just abuse her AI if you know how to. But despite the fight being on the slightly easier side, it was just not that fun to me. Now let's move on to Tyrannical Predator, genuinely one of the worst bosses I've ever faced in a Souls game. Whoever came up with the idea of this boss needs to be thrown in jail. Like, seriously. It's not like it's insanely hard or anything, it's just his hitboxes and the sluggishness of Pinocchio makes this fight abysmal. Like seriously, it's just not a fun fight with these type of mechanics. P moves so slow when it comes on to dodges that I pray that anytime this thing does his grab attack, I can dodge far enough without being hit. And I know there's probably going to be a guy down in the comments below defending this boss with his, dear life, but come on, this boss is just not good. However, despite how awkward and clunky this fight can feel, its moveset isn't really that hard to get used to. It's just that your character moves so slow and also one hit pretty much takes out 50 to 70% of your health. So that's why I placed him here. Anguished Guardian. This boss surprised me a lot. After the shit show that was Tyrannical Predator, I immediately thought that this guy, since he's another big ass boss, he would be super annoying to deal with. But surprisingly he wasn't. The fight itself, apart from that one attack in phase 2, is pretty decent for the most part. His attacks, while intimidating, are surprisingly fair. His hitbox isn't that wonky, and the only two things that adds to his difficulty is his enormous health pool and again, that one attack in phase 2. I don't know if there's a better way to counter it other than running, but that's the only method that worked for me so far. Now in terms of weaknesses, he's super weak to fire, but I've realized that using the Acid Legion arm works best because he isn't really that mobile, so he can't really move away from it. And it also does continuous damage to his horn, which definitely comes in handy as breaking it allows him to take more damage, and he also do this sick ass combo on him. But all in all, in terms of difficulty, he gets a 3 out of 5 from me, and in terms of quality, it's around 3.5 out of 5. I don't know why I just randomly started throwing in numbers, but hey, fuck it I guess. Two-Faced Overseer. Okay, this one isn't so bad as I thought it would be, and in my opinion, this is the third best boss in the DLC. It was either between him or Anguished Guardian. The reason why I preferred this guy over the Guardian is because sure, the Guardian wasn't an actually terrible fight like I thought it would be, and for the most part it was decent. And in terms of spectacle, it definitely is the winner, but the Guardian does have a few moves that I hate in its second phase, again making it really hard for me to put it higher. But Overseer, while harder, had less bullshit attacks. You just gotta learn his moveset. And speaking of them, man, they're quite unpredictable. He doesn't have any flashy crazy moves or anything, but his attacks felt much harder to dodge than some of the previous bosses. He requires almost perfect timing in order to have a decent time. Now, difficulty aside, there's not really much that I have to say about him, because despite being one of the better bosses in the DLC, he's still pretty mid in my opinion, compared to the base game ones. So yeah, Two-Face Overseer gets this spot. Markion is a super hard fight, but one that's actually really fun. It's one of the only dual boss that didn't feel like a pain in the ass, despite her difficulty. When I died, it wasn't because of any unnecessary bullshit, it's just that I wasn't reacting fast enough, which is super fair. Before I talk about her moveset though, let's first talk about her design. Honestly, it's really cool, her and the robot, and I can already sense the gooners making those type of art of them. Now, her moveset is super complex. I swear, one thing I do realize is that the bosses in this DLC are not pushovers whatsoever. These dudes are crazy fast and hit like trucks, and she's no different. At first, it's kind of hard getting used to her fight because you might not know whether to attack the puppet or her, as while the puppet has a smaller health pool, she on the other hand is super tanky. However, I found it best to just focus on her, as even if you take out the puppet, she's gonna revive it while also attacking you at the same time, so to make it simple, just focus on her while keeping an eye out for the puppet. This makes her moveset really weird to get used to, as it's far from the style that most Souls gamers are accustomed to. The best way to break it down is that she has two types of attacks. One where her puppet string turns red and she uses the puppet to attack you, whether it's an overhead slam, a dive, or some basic combos. When the string goes back to blue and you're close to her, this usually means she might attack you herself with these large blue orbs. These do massive amounts of damage and were the main reasons why I died to her a lot. And the thing is, she mixes these two types of attacks into combos. But pretty much after getting your ass kicked many times over, you will eventually get the hang of her moveset, but it's all a matter of fast reaction time and proper stamina management. Her second phase is pretty similar to the first, except when she glows yellow and do a series of attacks with both her and the puppet. I mostly just run away from these, except the one where the puppet flies into you 3 times. But yeah, she was a really fun boss, and definitely the second hardest in the DLC. At first place, we have the final boss, Arlecchino, the Blood Artist. Bro, when I tell you that this might be the hardest boss I've faced in a while, I mean, this dude is so freaking hard, it's crazy. I know in the story you at least have Leia who can help you, and trust me, she does a lot of damage, so it was really hard to know how strong he truly was, until I decided to fight him again in the boss rematch mode. But before I get into that, I need to talk about something within the mode itself. So the boss refight mode has difficulty options, right? 1, 2, and 3. The rest will be unlocked after defeating that boss in that specific difficulty. However, I found something really strange. You see, the game now has 3 difficulty options, and the hardest one, pre-New Game Plus 4, which is Legendary Stalker, is said to be the difficulty in which the game was originally. So when I chose to refight some of the bosses, I naturally chose difficulty 3 because in my mind I thought 3 would be considered the Legendary Stalker mode. But it turns out that's not really the case, because I realized that some of the bosses, even the base game ones, were 2-shotting, even 1-shotting me with 75% health. Mind you, my health is around 37 to 40, and I didn't remember the bosses doing that when I played it months ago. So I did some testing with Nameless Puppet, since technically at that time I haven't beat him as yet. And I was right. It turns out that difficulty 3 is way harder than Legendary Stalker. So for you guys who was going through the same issue, wondering why you're getting your ass torn apart by these bosses in rematch mode, it's not because you're bad, it's just that you need to play on difficulty 2 if you want to emulate the Legendary Stalker mode. Okay, so I got that off my chest, but the main reason why I brought it up is mostly because of this dude right here. In the story mode, I defeated him with the help of Leia rather easily, but in the boss refight mode, oh brother, this dude beat the living shit out of me. And this was when I was playing on difficulty option 2. It's to the point where I genuinely question if this game is truly for me. Each of his hits do so much health and stamina damage, and trust me, the stamina recovery in this game is already abysmal. I definitely think if it wasn't for that, I would have had a much easier time. Now, his damage output isn't the only thing that makes him hard, even though it's definitely the main reason. His speed and aggression makes him deadly as well. It took me countless tries in order for me to get the hang of his attacks, and even the ones that managed to get through my guard did so much damage. It's to the point where I was even questioning whether difficulty 2 was the right one. But you know, it's a skill issue, and I just realized that I suck at this game. And if you think phase 1 is hard, man, phase 2 is a whole different beast. He has so much more combos, and mind you, if one hits, that's a large portion of your health gone. It's also super hard to read his attacks in this phase. The one that I always hope for is when he brings his grinder forward, cause it's easier to deflect and it usually does stagger damage. But I swear if it wasn't for the slow dodge and terrible stamina management, he would have been a cakewalk. But difficulty aside, the design of this guy is top tier, and the story and cutscenes makes him super interesting. So remember in the base game there was like a weird guy giving out riddles and stuff like that? Well, it turns out this is him. He was basically the catalyst for the events of the base game, especially when it comes on to the puppet frenzy. Again, design wise he's really cool, and mechanics wise he's not bad either. It's just that I suck and that's that. But yeah, this dude is definitely the hardest boss in the game by a long shot. So that's it for the ranking. Again, the DLC was pretty enjoyable for the most part, even though it did take me a while to get used to the combat again. I swear going from night rain to this was like day and night. I'm not gonna lie though, while the bosses were decent for the most part, only 2 to 3, dare I say only 2 really stood out to me. But besides all of that though, I do hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'm most likely gonna make a pseudo review, I guess, comparing both Night Rain to Lies of P Overture to see which one, you should get. Anyways, again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and yeah, that's it.